I'm Marissa Grayson. It's nice to meet you and say your last name. So I'm glad I asked because I would have said Diaz. Or just mumble it. That's like what I do. So my students, I'm like, oh, okay, it's doctor. Mister.
I'm just
Okay. I'm going to call you Mister.
No, wait,
Captain. Okay, but I'm going to try. Is that the appropriate title? Okay, perfect. No. Yeah. Yes, right. Right. I'm Marissa Grayson. Yeah. That's okay. If you actually remind me of. No, I teach English. No. Well, so my background's interesting. So I was from Chicago, went to California to USC for Florida for grad school, but I've since adopted. My husband's an Alabama grad. Hi, I'm Marissa Grayson. Yes, thank you. It's nice to meet you as well. And is it Mr. or do you have a different title? Which are good. I've got Captain Retired. I've got Well, are you okay with me saying first names? First
It's not the same, you know what I'm saying? And not that it was 30 years, and so it's not that it was 30 years, and there's people that's done 6 years, and that's not the same way.
I agree. Well, you'll also get the opportunity to introduce yourself, so you can also.
Yeah, so how real can we get?
How real can you get?
Yeah, we spice it up.
I mean, if we start getting into this, like.
It's not even that's pretty much
That's fair. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, depending on what you think, you'll see some differences. An hour, yes.
It's going to be a different question for you first, and we're going to say a question.
We're going to go down the line, and I'll just switch who goes first.
Okay.
So you'll all get the opportunity to
and then you were to take the first one. Got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Excellent.
Yes, ma'am.
They were off. I came. There's a button on the back.
We need to turn them off.
No, keep them on.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's U.S. Senate Primary Candidate Forum. All of the candidates were invited to participate, and we're grateful to those who are here this evening, not only for joining us, but for their willingness to serve our communities. This portion of tonight's forum features the Republican candidates running for Senate. As I'm sure most of you know, absentee voting has already begun for the May 19th primary election. So now is the time to make your voting plan and prepare to cast your ballot. Information on the election, from where is my polling place to who are my candidates, can be found in our online voter guide, vote411.org. Before we begin, a quick reminder that tonight's forum is being live streamed and a recording will be available on the LWVAL's YouTube channel. Finally, the League of Women Voters of Alabama will host another candidate forum for the Senate candidates ahead of the general election. We hope you'll join us again for that conversation. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Marissa Grayson, our moderator for tonight's forum. Dr. Grayson is an assistant professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Alabama. She is the director of Public Policy minor and a distinguished teaching fellow. Dr. Grayson was the recipient of UA's 2026 Excellence in Civic Engagement Faculty Award. Her research areas include American Public Policy, Political Behavior, and Political Science Pedagogy. We are honored to have her lead tonight's discussion. So join me in welcoming Dr. Grayson.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Alabama for having me today. It truly is a privilege to be here with our Senate Republican candidates. I want to just remind people the rules. I'll make clear how much time you have to answer a question. The opening and closing statements will be 2 minutes. Otherwise, we'll have a minute and a half. And should someone be mentioned by name or there's something to follow up, there will be a very short rebuttal. The audience has a responsibility as well. Please make sure to be civil, to avoid clapping, making loud noises, disturbances, and I know that our candidates will also show that same sort of conduct. What we will do as far as questions is we will go down the line, everyone answering the same question, and I'll just change going down the line who gets to go first. So I'm going to let each candidate have 2 minutes for opening statements. And we're going to start with Captain Retired Seth Burton.
Thank you, Marissa. Seth Burton, candidate, United States Senate. First of all, I want to just say thank you to Dr. Deese and Rodney Walker for being here. You guys have been at these events to help inform the public every time, and I just want to say I appreciate how you feel accountable to the voters as they go on to cast their ballots. It's an honor to be at the table with you guys every night all across the state. So I am Seth Burton. I'm going to give you a short summary of who I am, and then I want to tell you what I want you to remember on election day. I am a native of Alabama, grew up in North Alabama. I was a farm boy. I grew up on a farm in the Marshall County area, educated in Alabama public schools, and graduated from the University of Alabama in Huntsville with a chemical engineering degree. I met my lovely wife, another Alabama girl, and married her at age 19, and we raised a family of 3 and have 2 grandkids now. We raised that family while we were in the Navy. But that's just our story. Everybody has a story. What I want you to remember about me on election day is I entered this race to give you a choice for someone you can trust. I lived a high accountability career, 30 years as a nuclear submarine officer. I understand accountability, I understand integrity, trust. It was paramount, it was essential in my world, so I understand that, and Washington doesn't understand that. 2, I lived 30 years of war and peace. I've been through all that we've been through for the past 30 years since I entered the Navy in 1994. So I understand war and peace, and that's important in this coming decade with the China challenge. And finally, I know nuclear energy. And nuclear energy is the key to our bringing the future economy here to Alabama so we can keep our young people here at home, raising their families on one income. That's my goal. So I want to make Alabama the nuclear energy capital of the world. So that's what I would want you to remember on election day, and I look forward to a great discussion tonight. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Dale Deese.
Thank you. So my name is Dr. Deese. I am 19 years, have lived down in Mobile, born and raised, and then after that I went to Vanderbilt for biomedical engineering, and then UAB for medical school, and then I went to Emory Healthcare, or Emory University for heart surgery training for 7 years. I want to, within those last 9 weeks, I took part in some cases that I was asked to testify in, as a witness, and I told the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, but it's the only thing I know how to do. I've always wanted to wake up from bed in the morning and knowing that I can live with myself, and I still can. And unfortunately, that information, was detrimental to the surgeons that were my bosses, and I was terminated for it. And I went to my politicians after that here in Alabama, Catebrick, Tuberville, Palmer, and what I found was that their donations were tied with Emory University, and this is going to be a theme, actually from all three of us, but I'm going to focus on is, the words bought and paid for. That's kind of the theme of this political season, I feel. It's actually something you don't want to be, given mountains of cash, and you can't serve the people in that process. And also, one thing I want to say is, as I will be the first U.S. Senate candidate, if elected, to bar lobbyists from my Senate doors. And that's something I'm actually proud of. And I don't want to be bought and paid for, and I want to serve the people of Alabama. And so we'll talk more about some of my policies, but I really am thankful for y'all having me today. Thanks.
And Mr. Rodney Walker.
Hello everyone, it's my pleasure to be here tonight in Montgomery, Alabama. I would like to thank my fellow contestants here in this race. We get along very well. Y'all, I'd like for you to realize that there's 3 of us here tonight and there's 6 people running. I want you to know that people care that are sitting here before you tonight. Y'all, I want you to realize that I'm the career businessman in this race. I have several different businesses. We have Walker Lands and Cattle. We have Patriot Fueling Centers. We have Patriot Fuels USA, where we ship fuel down the pipeline. Wedowee Quarry in Randolph County. We have Walker Construction, a general contractor since 1991. And we have Hatchet Creek Leasing. Y'all, there's a lot of issues that affect our state. One thing I want to tell you that I'm adamant about is term limits. And y'all, I'll tell you this, that we face a lot of opposition amongst the people that's been there for 30 or 40 years that think that you don't need term limits because they are living the life of the dream, and I want to put a stop to that. I believe that we can do that by grandfathering in the people that are there, and then the people that come along must just serve 2 terms as a senator, 12 years, and 12 years as a representative. Y'all, it's very important that we know I'm your infrastructure man. I want to widen I-65. I want to build a bridge over the Mobile Bay for I-10. I want to finish widening I-20. Y'all, I want to bring projects and things home. I've said this before. We've got one of our congressmen in Alabama right now that's running for Senate, and he says it's not his job to bring home the bacon. He says that he's only to work on balancing the budget. I'll tell you this, if I'm elected as your United States Senator, I'm going to bring home the bacon, and I'm going to bring home the whole hog, because that's what we need to do. Y'all, we need people that wants to work for every person in the state of Alabama, and that's me. I want to provide unity, and I want to work hard for every person in this state. And I ask you strongly for your support tonight. Rodney Walker.
So I heard words like unity, trust, accountability, integrity, which brings me to my first question related to those issues. So Dr. Dees will begin with the answer for this question. Intense partisan polarization is a primary reason for low congressional approval ratings as it contributes to legislative gridlock, decreased productivity, and public perception of dysfunction. So the question for each of you is, how would you work effectively in a closely divided Senate to get results for Alabamians?
Yes, so thank you. The percent of people that are not working well with each other within Congress, I mean, the approval ratings for Congress are low, they're 20-30%, and it's never been that low before. And I actually, just before I answer the question, I want to say that my postulation is that the reason why is because everyone's bought and paid for. There's only 10 congressmen, men and women that aren't bought by AIPAC. Israeli influenced entity, and before they make any decision, they have to check with their mom, their dad, their cousin, their best friend next door, and their ex-girlfriend before they even can make their own decisions. That's essentially what they're doing, and I think that that's a huge problem. For me, working across the aisle, I think if you look at some of the best presidents we've had, and even historical ones, even if you look at Abraham Lincoln, he surrounded himself by people that were very intelligent and people that were smarter than him. And, there's people that are smart on both sides of the aisle. We all are Americans, and we all have to come together and make decisions. The last thing we need is to have gridlock in Washington, because all that does is create, areas where there's inefficiency in our government. And when that happens, we can't do anything. It's important, and I'm someone that will obviously work with people very closely in the Senate and make the decisions that need to be made. Sometimes they're hard, but if you look at the details, and sometimes they might go Republican and hard right, and sometimes the information might not be great, but you have to look at the details. So, thank you.
Mr. Walker.
I'm going to talk a lot tonight about being a businessman, but what I want you to know is, as a business leader in the state of Alabama, over my complete life, I've learned to work with people. That's the main thing, whether it's working with employees, working with other contractors, working with your vendors, working with your customers. You've got to work together. Y'all, I want to brag about Katie Britt for a minute. She, as our junior senator, was the person that reached across the line. When our government was shut down, when our people that work for USDA and TSA and other things was not able to draw a paycheck, it was her that reached across the line. I want you to know that I spoke about unity in my open statement. I'm going to work with all the people. I mean, there's some yahoos up there that you can't work with, but Lordy mercy, you can listen to them, and you can talk to them, and you can see if you can understand it, and you can make something happen. We do not ever need to have government shutdowns, and we must work together with our fellow man. We must work together to listen to all of our constituents across the state of Alabama, and I vow to you that I'll be the person that can do that if you'll give me the chance.
And Captain Retired Bergen.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to say you have to show up. And, in this race so far, there's multiple candidates that don't feel accountable to you, the voter, to show up and debate ideas, debate issues. So that's the first thing, is you show up. You have character, you're willing to be challenged. I'll tell you how I would approach it, because other than showing up, is I've done this for 30 years. I've been apolitical up until January of 2026. My entire adult life was in service to the Constitution of this republic. I didn't worry about who was Democrat. I didn't worry about who was Republican. I had shipmates. I had fellow sailors. I had soldiers. I had people I worked with about a mission. And so that's what we need more people to come to Washington with that mentality, that it's about the preservation of our republic. It's not about power. It's not about how I protect my party. It's not about calling people names. It's about being professional, deliberate, and caring about the future of our children and grandchildren, and not grandstanding. So for me, I'm historically apolitical. What you can count on in me if I'm a senator is I'm going to reach across the aisle, I'm going to reach across my own party, and I'm going to find solutions. And I'm going to find them that are good for the long term, not just the short term.
Thank you all. The next question, which will start with Mr. Walker, is what ethics or campaign finance reforms do you support, if any, to reduce special interest influence?
So thank you very much. Look, I support transparency in all campaign reporting and so forth. Y'all, we've got a candidate in our race that's got $6.5 million in from cryptocurrency. And then there's the Club for Growth that's committed a large amount on top of that. It is even probably to the reason that there's an endorsement. Y'all, we have got to get to the point where that we are very transparent on PAC contributions and things that are coming in. Yes, we have laws and rules that regulate that, but there's also all these loopholes and things to go around it. And let me tell you something. If there's a PAC or a group that contributes $6.5 million to a fellow campaign person, they're looking for something in return. And I promise you, what worries me is that cryptocurrency is going to try to overtake and make the poor people poor and the rich people richer. And I'm here to stand in the gap for you and make sure that that doesn't happen. I've not taken PAC contributions at this time. and I am fully supported with all of my good friends that give us small donations, and we are very thankful to that. And that's how we built this campaign, and that makes me work for each one of you in the state of Alabama.
Captain Retired Burden.
Thank you, Marissa. First of all, this is an example of centralization of power. You'll hear me talk about that a lot, of how the centralization of power is destroying our republic. This is a perfect example of it. After Citizens United, you can see that the growth in investment by PACs, super PACs, corporations into campaigns is enormous, going from the hundreds of millions of dollars in the early 2000s to multi-billion dollars. And 20% of that in the last election was done by 100 different entities. So that is a big deal. That means a few people are controlling your elections. And this is another example where the people with the big money, the PACs behind them, they don't feel accountable to even come talk to you tonight. They are not here. They have their money. They have their polls that they're going to be able to use to sway the public to say they are the best candidates. Well, guess what? They're not the best candidates. They just have people that are willing to pay for them. So I just implore the public to give the candidates that truly love the republic, that truly love the American ideas, a chance. Listen to us, give us an opportunity. As far as specific reforms, I'm actually wide open to going back and debating the whole McCain-Feingold discussions of the past. I think there's limits on what my friends and family can support in our small donations, and yet there's no limits on what a big company can bring into this, and rich people can put into a PAC, and then guess what? They just swallow up all the efforts of these young, these genuine Americans that are giving their $100 and $200 to campaigns, and they just get squashed by the big money. So I think we need to go back and put some limits on that.
Dr. Dees.
Yes, so for me, it's a lot similar to the other guys here. 65-1, that's the proportion of how much money has been going from 2010, before and after Citizens United, with PAC money. So 65 times more money is being used in the elections after Citizens United than it was prior to 2010. And corruption, there is a graph, and it's inversely related. As the PAC money is going up over the last decade and a half, the corruption score is going down. And there's a score that's very reputable, but it's down into the 70s. And typically over a decade in the United States, over a decade, it's only moved 1 or 2 points, and it's moved over 11 points in the last decade, which is astronomically, disproportionate. So this is a huge problem. I will champion overturning Citizens United, outlawing these PAC buyouts that people are buying their politicians, and it's sad. The people need representation, and we can't have it when they're all bought and paid for. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up with something that Mr. Walker said during his opening statements and let each of you answer the question. Perhaps we can keep this answer a little shorter, just maybe even yes or no, or you need to explain. But we'll start with Captain Retired Burden. Do you support congressional term limits?
Thank you for an easy question that I don't need to write down. Absolutely support term limits, and I support it for the legislative branch and the judicial branch. I do not believe permanent power in any branch of government is healthy. The founding fathers warned us against permanent power anywhere. They didn't put specific things in the Constitution based on a few assumptions that no one would want to spend that long in these offices, for one, and that the people would remove them after a normal period of time. Those assumptions have proved wrong, and so we have to change our Constitution structurally to limit them. I'm a fan of 12 years max for all offices, whether it's 6 Congress, 2 senators, 12 years in the Supreme Court, or even the federal district courts that are appointed. So yes, I'm supportive of term limits.
Go ahead, Dr. Dees.
Yes, I'm also supportive of term limits. Anything that will maximize efficiency and anti-corruption, removing corruption from the field, is something that I certainly will champion. And I certainly believe that 12 years for U.S. Senate and 3 terms for congressmen and women is appropriate, and I certainly would endorse that.
Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
And so, in a short answer, yes, I extremely support term limits. I would like to, and I've signed the termlimits.org, and that's on our website, and also you can find it on their website. I signed that in July 25, not just in the past week or two. I would also like to let you know something. When people in the Congress say that you can't get nothing done in 12 years, I want you to know that you can challenge that. Katie Britt has been there for 2 years. She's got a lot of things done. Look at all of the things that have been brought back to Alabama. She just got an award for working with other people. And y'all, Coach Tuberville has also done that, and he's only served 1 term. Y'all, we can change the way that this moves by working on term limits and not having people bought and paid for it. And that's my answer. Thank you so much.
Great. We're going to keep with this discussion about balance of power a little bit more. And Dr. Dees, you'll be the first person to answer. In your view, is the system of checks and balances in Washington still effectively preventing any one branch from becoming too powerful? Or has that balance shifted? And then, if you believe the balance has shifted, what should be done about it?
Yeah, so I think that the checks and balances are not checking or balancing anything at this point. So, for instance, the president, a lot of power. The Senate and Congress, I think that they've given over their power to the president, and I don't believe that any one congressman or women should be pay allegiance to the president. Even as great as the president might be, you should not, because it's taking away the power from the legislature, and I believe in balance of powers. The judicial branch, I think, is okay. Obviously, it's far right now, and that will change over time. But the legislature has got to get their power back, because right now what's happening is basically just one entity controlling everything and also controlling the bills, whether they get passed or not, and naming his own bills, and I just think it's inappropriate. So thank you.
Great, Mr. Walker.
So there's 3 branches of government, as I learned in history: executive, legislative, and judicial. At this point in time, as Dr. Dees mentioned, our legislative branch is not doing their job like it's supposed to be done, and that's the problem. So the executive branch is having to make all these executive orders to fulfill what the legislative branch ought to be doing on their own and themselves. So it's time that we give them a swift kick in the backside to make sure that they start doing their job again. And look, as I grew up, I didn't recall that many executive orders, but as Obama came along, executive orders started coming on, and then Biden brought on some more, and then President Trump has brought on those. But y'all, it's the legislative department's job to make the laws, the executive branch to sign those laws, and the judicial branch to interpret those laws. Let's get back to the way the Constitution was written, and let's bring our America back to the way it's supposed to be as a republic.
Captain Retired Burden.
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. Completely agree with Rodney on that. And so the way I look at it, to answer your specific questions, checks and balances are not working well. Bottom line, I think we all know that. And it goes back to what Rodney was saying: the legislative branch, Congress and the Senate, have abdicated so much of their responsibility, and as a result, who fills in the gap? Presidents do with executive orders, and then judges fill in with legislating from the bench, making laws from the bench that they are never supposed to be making. And so it's a function of the legislative branch being broken. The House is supposed to, manage the purse, essentially, and make sure that we balance our budgets. They completely abdicated that responsibility. They don't match revenues with spending. The Senate is supposed to be the deliberative branch that puts a check on and thinks long-term in the republic. They don't do that. They get caught up in Instagram and yelling at each other, just like the congressmen do. They don't act like senators. And then the judicial branch is... They have gotten so accustomed to just ruling from the bench and making laws instead of saying, nope, this law is unconstitutional, throw it back to the legislative branch, make them do their job to pass a statute that is constitutional. Instead, they legislate from the bench, and what I would say they need to do is throw it back to the legislative branch to make them do their job. So it's, I think, you want to know what should be done. I truly believe we have to send more people to Washington that, like Dr. D said, aren't bought and paid for in the system, that actually challenge and try to restore it to the constitutional governance that Rodney was talking about.
Well, the discussion of the power of the purse is a great transition to my next question. And Mr. Walker, you'll go first with this question. As of early May 2026, the total U.S. national debt has surpassed $38.9 trillion, while the federal government has incurred a cumulative deficit of $1.2 trillion for the first half of fiscal year 2026. What's your approach to federal spending, deficits, taxes? Are there specific programs you would not fund?
So let me start back at the beginning. When we started this race in July of 2025, the debt was $36 trillion. At this point in time, according to the Congressional Budget Office, it is $38.9 trillion. And then one correction, the Congressional Budget Office says this fiscal year that we have borrowed $600 billion already. Now, I believe before this fiscal year is over that we will be borrowing another $600 billion or more dollars. But let me tell you something. We have got to balance our budget. We have got to start in January and February working on a balanced budget. We have got to pass a balanced budget amendment, and we have got to stop kicking the ball down the road and starting to work on this in September the 30th. We have no business of sending our people home without pay or expecting them to work without pay. Our Lord forgive them working overseas, protecting our country without getting paid. It is not fair for people that work at the USDA, the TSA, and other agencies to be able to have to pay their car payments, their house payments, their kids to go to school and different things like that and not getting paid. It used to be a great place to work if you work for the government. It is not that way anymore. And it's time that our senators and congressmen stand in the gap and make sure that we fund our government the correct way. She asked about cutting programs. The Department of Education is #1 on my list. My wife worked for 22 years as a school teacher, and it's time that we put the money back in the classroom and not in the bureaucrats' hands in Washington, D.C.
Captain Retired Burden?
Thanks, Marissa. I want to add a few more stats into that because you gave some great ones. But when I was born in 1972, our debt to GDP ratio was about 26%. When I entered the Navy in 1994, it had almost doubled to about 48%. When I left the Navy in 2025, it was over 120% debt to GDP ratio. That is irresponsibility. That is no accountability to we the people by our legislators. So my approach to federal spending is, for one, we have plenty of revenue. No matter what our tax structure is, we consistently get 17 to 18% of GDP, which gives us right now with our nation's economy, $5 to $6 trillion. That is plenty. We don't need to raise taxes. What we do have to do is get disciplined with spending. So I am all for cutting programs like agencies like the Department of Education. There's a lot of redundant programs. But ultimately, you do all that, you still only get to a few $100 billion. That's not the trillion that we've added onto the budget. We've added $2 trillion in 6 years to federal spending. That was irresponsible. So we're going to have people that are willing to go and say, you have to cut the spending. And I know I'm going to run out of time here, so I'm going to jump straight to the policy things that I would focus on. No budget, no pay is one. Follow up on Rodney. If you don't pass a budget by September 30th, you shouldn't get a paycheck as a congressman or senator until you pass a budget. And then I'm big for a balanced budget amendment to force them to do what so far they've been unable to do because they don't have the political resolve to look people hard in the face and say, we can't afford these programs, they're being cut.
Thank you. Dr. Dees.
Yes, so I think that the United States has enjoyed a 50, 60 years of history of having a stable economy with the petrodollar, oil and our U.S. dollar being the basis of the price of oil. And now what we have is, with the Strait of Hormuz and China, is that China is taking advantage of what's happening without even entering conflict and having their Chinese yuan enter the system. And what that does is that raises interest rates. And the interest rates then raise your mortgages, they raise everything about borrowing power. And in the process, the debt just becomes astronomical, it's hard to pay back, and we're in a big problem. And we have to address this now. And one thing is just budget reallocation, also not being bought and paid for, and actually doing things that are helpful to Alabama and to the United States instead of what's helpful to your person that owns you. And also, lastly, the Department of Education is something I would obviously remove, because I think that the states should have the power to decide on how their children are educated.
All right, well, we'll keep talking about the economy a bit more. How would you support Alabama industries affected by trade policy? So I'm thinking, for example, farming, auto, and manufacturing, but you may think about others. Captain Retired Burden, I'll let you go first.
Thanks, Marissa. Anytime what the president is doing with trade policies right now, it's long overdue for one. That we allowed, through many years of quote fair trade, we allowed there to be this big unleveling of the competition to where we were being undercut as a country. Our manufacturing was going overseas. We were deindustrializing. We were doing all the wrong things in the name of goodness and fair trade. So I applaud his effort to try to level that playing field again, but that does cause disruption. And so that's where we need to have wise leaders in Washington that says, okay, until we can reestablish an actual level playing field and the systems operate normally, that is when government steps in, provides temporary relief to farmers, manufacturers, those sort of things. But that should all be temporary. You don't want to set up programs where you subsidize things long term, because that makes bad behavior. But I do believe there's a role in government. When we screwed up with policies of the past, we need to recognize that to fix those policies and restore the level playing field in this case, that we have to apply certain investment into those industries during that transition period until we can get the normal economic systems functioning again.
Thank you. Dr. Dees.
Yes, so with trade policies, I believe in reciprocal tariffs. Basically, if you tax 10% on China, then 10% is taxed on the United States, and I think President Trump did an excellent job in doing that. Now, I think also he probably took it a little too far in taxing 100%, 150, and 200% on countries. He did get them to do what he wanted, but it also created market instability. And I think that's something that's dangerous and allows people that are bought and paid for to make decisions on whether to sell or buy or sell stocks and benefit from that, and then not even paying attention to people here in Alabama. For instance, fertilizer. So ammonia is 30% of ammonia in the world comes through the Strait of Hormuz, and that's used to build to make fertilizer, and that fertilizer is used to build or grow crops. And 50% of our corn this year is actually not going to be grown because of the instability in the market created in the Strait of Hormuz. And people always ask me, well, the United States makes their own fertilizer. Yes, we do, but there's a ripple effect, and it doesn't matter. It will affect the local economy, and we need to start doing things that stabilize the economy and make very intentional decisions instead of flying off the cuff. And so, for me, I would say I'd try to talk to the president and other people, and really focus on making stable decisions for our economy.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
So I want to be the advocate for our farmers. The first farmer that's went to Washington, D.C. as a senator in a long time. That's what our country was founded on when Thomas Jefferson and George Washington went to D.C. as farmers and business leaders to work for our people. Y'all, I want you to know something. The Port of Mobile is a metropolis for this state. If you want to talk about the economic engine and you want to talk about getting the gross domestic product up, the Port of Mobile is where that happens at. We've got a grain elevator that'll store 3 million bushels there. It's only one in the whole United States that's a coastal grain elevator. Portland, Oregon, Houston, Texas, New Orleans, and Mobile, Alabama. What we got to do is help our farmers. Right now, corn is $4.84 a bushel. Cotton is 61 cents a bushel. Y'all, that's the same price as it was in 1974. We've got many things that ship out through the Port of Mobile. Lumber, coal, crude oil, all types of things. But we've got to have a United States Senator that's not scared to work. A man that doesn't work just Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. A man that goes overseas and brings home the bacon to our state and sends our products to other countries. That's what increases the gross domestic product, just like when our grandparents worked in the cotton mills and we sent product overseas. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to work hard for you to get your gross domestic product up and to ship our products overseas and to help our farmers and help our business leaders across our state.
Thank you. Dr. Dees, we're going to start with you with this next question. Do you support restoring or strengthening federal voting rights protections, and if so, which measures?
So, if I understand the question right, can you state it again, actually?
Sure. Specifically, do you support either restoring or strengthening federal voting rights, and if so, what particular measures?
Like the SAVE Act and stuff that they've been talking about, or no?
Sure. I'm thinking like the John Lewis Act, for example, or the measures related to access to voting, etc.
Okay. So, if I'm interpreting this right, with the decision that occurred here in Louisiana in the overturn of districting and the gerrymandering that's occurring, and now that you have to produce proof of race, racial discrimination for how things are being redistricted, that makes it harder for instance, it makes it harder for the Democrats if they are creating these districts. It makes it harder for them to be able to defend against the Republicans if the Republicans are creating all these red states. So to say it again, for instance, with Alabama, if there's 7 congressional districts and all 7 of them are red, I think it takes away the voter rights that African Americans rightfully have and have won over the last 40 years of the civil rights. And I think that people in Alabama need to know that once we start doing these things, there's going to be a reaction back towards the Republicans with the Democrats, and it can happen as early as November. So I think with voting rights, I think everybody should have a voice, and we should leave alone what's has been district out here in Alabama. Because we're in a dangerous cycle where we're going to be going back and forth like ping pong and really create a problem for voters and for our constitutional rights and due process.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
So I'm going to answer it this way. I 100% support the SAVE Act, and I think that Congress ought to pass that immediately. And I believe this, that we don't understand this in Alabama because to vote, we have to furnish our driver's license and things. We have to be an American citizen to vote. You cannot go to another country and vote if you're not a citizen of that country, if they even allow it. You don't understand what communism is, and you're told how you're going to vote and that type of thing. Let me tell you something. I live in a little small rural community, and even there, they'll say, "Hey, Rodney, how you doing?" When you go down to the fire station, let me see your driver's license. If I want to check in at the hotel, I got to furnish my driver's license. If I want to go buy certain things at the grocery store or the convenience store, I have to furnish my driver's license. We only need American citizens voting. And I think that our voting rights, we've got voting rights that's been passed across the decades and things like that, but we need to have the SAVE Act because we don't need to have other people voting from other countries in our elections and changing the way that is. And I believe if you get right down to it, there's only 6 states that really have that problem, and so we need to have that corrected across the board.
Captain Retired Burden?
Okay, Dr. Dees and I were just talking. I want to make sure I understand the question, because I know he struggled to understand it as well. Are we talking more election, the measures that have been taken for like election confidence, or are we talking more of the redistricting discussions that we've been having?
Yeah, so when I'm thinking about the federal voting rights, I was thinking less about election integrity,
Right.
I think is the language we would often use,
Yeah.
and more expanding access to the vote, or you know, fostering more opportunity to protect the right to vote.
Okay. I'll try to answer it from that perspective. First of all, voting, I absolutely want there to be maximum legal voting. I don't want any sort of suppression. I don't want any sort of discouraging voting. But we also have to make sure we have legal votes cast and citizens vote. So it's something where we have to invest the time as legislators, again, into putting in at the federal and the state level the right rule sets to make that happen. I think from a bigger perspective, we need to start looking at just the level of representation that we have, and maybe we can have this follow on as a question, because this is where my brain went the first time. On the level of representation we have in the Congress based on the number of people that they're trying to represent. It is way out of proportion. So I think it's something, as senators, we should be taking that on, originally in the Constitution, it was one representative per 30,000 citizens. Now it's one representative per about every 750 to 80,000 citizens. So that is a big, big difference, and that is one of the main things that George Washington actually spoke on at the Constitutional Convention, is to make sure that level of representation, you felt accountable again to the people that you are representing. I'm sure I hit all around your question. I don't know if I answered it. I'm happy to come back to more if you want to spin another question to us, but that's how I'll answer for now.
Thank you. And since I clarified for you, I want to give each of you 30 seconds if you want it to add anything to your answer. You don't need to, but you're welcome to.
I think I kind of covered mine, and I'm good with mine.
Okay. Good. Are you good?
Good.
All right. Let's go on and talk about healthcare then. An estimated 130,000 to 170,000 Alabamians are expected to lose insurance coverage due to their expiration of enhanced premium health credits by the end of 2025. Also, residents purchasing insurance through the health insurance marketplace could see their premiums rise by an average of 93%. So, as Senator, what steps would you take to help citizens with their health care costs? And we'll start with Mr. Walker, right? Did I mess that up? Good. Making sure I remembered where we were at.
So I think that we made a mess when we started Obamacare. I don't know if everybody's going to agree with me on that, but in other words, that's where we started the healthcare initiative, and we was promised all these wonderful things that hasn't come to pass, and now we have to pay the piper. That's a big problem, and as a senator, we're going to have to address that. There's going to have to be, we're going to have to put our big boy pants on, and we're going to have to look at it from that perspective, and we're going to have to face some hard issues, but we've got to address that. I would like to add to that, while we're on this subject, that in Alabama, there's 47 rural hospitals, and 11 of them are in imminent danger of closing. Y'all, my biggest issue is saving our rural hospitals and things. I want to make sure that the Medicare Reimbursement Act is remodified. It is a failure, and it is broken at this time. And even with a big, beautiful bill, that's spread out over 5 years, and it's $50 billion spread out over 5 years, $10 billion a year spread out over 50 states and all those hospitals. So a hospital only gets $2 million a year, and it's got to be spent on capital improvements. Y'all, we've got to worry about closing our rural hospitals, and we was adamant and able to save Greenville Hospital and add mental health capabilities there and keep their beds open. Our hospital in Clay County is turned into a rural health care facility. I think that it's super important that we add mental health into our hospitals, and we have to save our rural hospitals for the whole state and for the nation, as that matters.
Thank
Thank you. Captain Retired Burden?
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. I want to start with saying the whole healthcare discussion, and back to what Ronnie said with the Obamacare, this is fundamentally about freedom versus control. And so we have to look through that lens, that the whole goal of one side of this whole debate is to get control of healthcare over each of us to where you have almost no say in your own healthcare. They'll put it in different words, but they're trying to get to a single payer system, and that was the whole reason Obamacare was set up to fail. It's not a surprise that it's failing. We knew it was going to fail. It was set up to fail. They wanted to fail because they want the American people to come running with arms wide open to hug the government and say, give us a single payer system, and then they have control of it. So we have to resist that as a people, because remember, Gerald Ford said, a government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take everything you have. So we have to look through that lens. That being said, because again, I'm going to run out of time here, and this is a complex subject, I believe the government screwed this up. And so we need to figure out a path back to private health care, private management, but removing all the big monopoly sort of rules that are in place to prevent competition. We need to have interstate competition. We need to have defined catastrophic caps, because no one should be ruined financially the rest of their life because of an unexpected event. So we need to come up with those basic things and then turn it over to the people and private industry to make it work. And the government can provide a transition back off of it in the other direction, getting the stop sign. So yeah, it's a very complicated subject, so I'll stop there, but I'm for private, going back the private direction and fighting the government takeover.
Thank you. Dr. Pease?
Yes, so the issues for me are single-payer systems and monopolies. So single-payer systems, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, all the insurances out there. When you are at a hospital like UAB and also at a rural hospital, and an echo costs 3 times as much for reimbursement from one hospital over the other. For instance, if UAB gets paid $2,700 for an echo, which is typically the price, and then $900 is only reimbursed to the rural hospital, that does not allow the rural hospitals to keep their ERs open. And so what we need is what's called an all-payer system. The all-payer system allows for price stabilization across the board and will allow your premiums to be more appropriate. Secondly, which will also help with rural hospital closure and rural hospital survival. And the second thing is monopolies. Monopolies, it is a huge problem, and I'm going to say, Steve Marshall on Monday said that this is not his problem. Well, whose problem is it? He's the Attorney General of Alabama, and nothing's his problem. And it blows me away, because Huntsville Health and Crestwood merger is a catastrophe. I mean, look at Jackson Hospital here in Montgomery. It's crazy. And Ivy's trying to bail out hospitals. We need accountability. We need an Attorney General that does his job or her job, and we need monopolies and antitrust laws to be reined in, because we have a huge problem ahead of us if we don't.
Okay, I want to get one more question in before closing statements. So I'm going to ask our wonderful timekeeper to only give 1 minute for answers. So gas prices are skyrocketing, our power bills are going up, farmers are going bankrupt, as we've mentioned. So how does America become more energy secure? And Captain Retired Burden, you'll go first.
Yes, the energy is the blood of the economy. So I'm a big proponent of realizing that the next economy, the economy that's coming, huge demand for energy, needs nuclear power. So I've spent 30 years dealing and operating with nuclear reactors. I understand the power that they give, the opportunity they have for this economy. I'm an all sources kind of guy, so if we're going to hear drill, bam, drill, and other stuff, I'm all for that too. As long as the government's not having to subsidize it. It should stand on its own, because it's good for the economy, it's good for the nation. But from a scale point of view and what we need for a very abundant baseload power, nuclear energy is it. Alabama has the opportunity to lead into the future, be the nuclear capital of Alabama. We already have the infrastructure, the people, the background, the competence to do it. We just need to take on that second renaissance of nuclear energy and make the small modular reactor, micro reactor world that's coming part of our grid. We don't want to lose it to the Rust Belt states, and we want to be a part of it right here in the South. So nuclear energy all the way.
Dr. Dees.
Yes, so I'm really big on things that are tangible that you can put in your hand. And for me, as a surgeon, that's all I did every day. But for me, Alabama power is the problem, and this translates. People say from North Alabama, oh, I'm TVA, or some, or Tarrant, Alabama has their own utilities. But the issue is holding power companies accountable. When you do that, you allow people to have more money back into their pocket so that they can spend whatever they want to spend, but it's better than having to pay, the big meals out there like Alabama Power. And in order to do that, you need to cap the rate, the return on equity. So right now, Alabama Power is 14 to 15%, and the national average is 9.1%. And if we can cap it, which we can at the federal level, and condition federal budget allocations to the power companies, if they were to do that, then that will save over $2 billion over the next 10 years for people here in Alabama. It will save you $17 every month. And that grows and grows and grows. And also transparency, price transparency, that's also crucial. And the PSC is obviously should be responsible for that, but we need to do much more. And that can all be done at the federal level because the Alabama legislature and the PSC has failed us.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
Drill, Bama, drill. In other words, I'm in the energy business, and we are full of crude oil in Alabama. Down South Alabama, Conecuh, Crenshaw, Covington, Escambia counties, and out in Mobile Bay, we have crude oil. We need to be energy independent in the state of Alabama and the nation. Look, we got coal, good clean coal out of Walker and Tuscaloosa counties. They've just issued a BLM contract to send 45 years of metallurgical coal overseas, which will again increase our gross domestic product. But y'all, I have a plan, because what you don't understand is being in the fuel business, I know that these fuel prices are being pushed by the New York City and Chicago hedge funds. And we've got to get that under control, because it's not the gas stations or the jobbers that are making the prices high. It's the New York City hedge funds. And it's time to make a change for it. And y'all, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to work hard to do away with these Biden energy green initiatives, and I'm going to do away with these solar farm paybacks and these windmills and things of that nature. We've got to go back to fossil fuel like America was built on.
All right, we are now at the point that we are going to entertain closing statements. So Dr. Dees, you are first.
Yes, so thank you. I first want to thank you all for having me today. It's been a pleasure being with you all this afternoon and tonight. So one thing first, and some of y'all might laugh, but there's 3 people that didn't show up for the the NFL Combine, and we showed up. And if you're bought and paid for, well, they think that they don't have to show up. And some people, think that they don't have to show up because they intellectually aren't able to have discussions like this that we're having. And Jared Hudson, I'm sorry, but you have to show up and be a part of discussions. And every time I bring up things, with Marshall or Jared Hudson in particular, and I question them, and I've caught both of them in multiple lies, it's all recorded, it's all there. It's ridiculous because we want accountability, and the people here in this auditorium want accountability. So, if y'all think that it's not important to show up for your constituents here today, then why are you going to, how are the people that are going to vote for you think that you're going to do that next year? That's a huge problem. Lastly, what will separate me from everyone else again is the no lobbyist issue. I think it's unheard of to bar lobbyists from your Senate doors, and I was affected by corruption. It's personal to me. My whole family's affected by it. I'm affected by it permanently, and there's just no way I can ever be bought, because I will go to my grave fighting corruption and making sure that the people of Alabama actually have elected officials that meet with them, that sympathize with them, and also that actually do their job, because that's something that wasn't offered to me. I asked for my politicians to help me, and I had a lot of legal things that were in my favor, and they decided that they'd rather get the money from across the state over to Georgia, and it's sad. But lastly, please really consider every candidate, and also look at their behaviors. That's really important from a medical doctor standpoint. Behaviors matter, and it's something to be said when people actually come up and show up for the combine and show off what they have.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
I noticed when I was in here earlier, I came in a little early and the Democratic candidate stood up. So I want to stand up, y'all. I want to stand before you tonight, and I want you to please think about voting for the businessman, the career businessman in this election. Y'all, not the career politicians. Stop sending the same people back to Washington, D.C. Stop sending those bought and paid for bureaucrats back to D.C. Stop letting Washington, D.C. spend $6.5 million on your election. You are the people, and you decide who you vote for. It's your God-given right. It's what my grandfathers and your grandfathers fought for in World War II and other wars to give you that right. Don't let it be taken away. Y'all, I want to emphasize to you again that I'm the infrastructure man. I-65, I-10, I-20, 331, 431, 231. We have got to worry about our infrastructure. The Alabama River, railroads, fuel pipelines, the Port of Mobile. Y'all, I'm talking about right now. Can you imagine? I'm talking about 6 lanes in I-65. Do you know by the end of my tenure in Washington, D.C., we're going to be needing to talk about 8 lanes in the highway. Our people and our manufacturing is growing, but we're not growing our infrastructure with it. And that's what's so important, because how are you going to, you can build all the plants you want to, but if you can't get the people from their house to their job, you have accomplished nothing. If you can't get the products from Huntsville or across this state down to the Port of Mobile to send them to other countries, you have accomplished nothing. And I ask you sincerely, as you go vote on May 19th, to please vote for Rodney Walker. If you want to vote for progress, if you want somebody that'll work for all the people in this state, no matter what gender, race, or anything, age, whatever, I'm your man, Rodney Walker.
Thank you. Captain Retired Burden.
Thanks, Marissa. Thanks for doing this tonight. Great job. And thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. And I tell Rodney all the time when I get to talk after him, I feel like just running right through a wall when he's done, because he just motivates me so much. Let me tell you something. I had command of USS Scranton. It's called the Iron Horse. Scranton, Pennsylvania, big into the coal and railroad days, the Iron Horse. We had a saying on there in my command philosophy, the iron sharpens iron. That means you have to be willing to go at it. You have to be willing to challenge each other. You have to be able to debate ideas, challenge your assumptions. And I see a pattern with the 3 top tiers, they call it candidates in this race, where they're not willing to get asked questions that get 2-minute answers. So if you aren't willing to show up and do debates like that, forums like that, to talk to you, the citizens, then what if they're willing to manipulate or shape an election like that by staying off the grid instead of coming up here and facing the voters, what will they do then to hold on to power? And so I submit to you that the powers to be, the elite powers, pick their people. The wings of the parties pick their people. Those aren't the people that you want going to Washington. You want people that are independent thinkers. I've stared danger in the face. I've stared death in the face for 3 decades on multiple occasions. So I'm not scared of doing something on behalf of this republic. And it's hard to convey that message to sometimes a public that doesn't hear. They just look at the money. They just look at what the polls say. But I just encourage every voter to go and look at all the candidates. As Dr. D said, watch their behaviors, watch if they're willing to come before you, sometimes get told hard things, and that's okay. We work for you if we get elected. Whoever we elect in the Senate will be working for us, and they need to understand that. They're accountable to the sovereign citizen. So I want to finish up with reminding you, Rodney's the businessman, and Dr. Deese is, the brainiac surgeon and private investigator. Everything that he is, just loves America. I am your guy that you can trust. I've lived war and peace. I lived extreme accountability on a level that most people never understand, commanding submarines for 5 years. And I know nuclear energy, and I want to make Alabama the nuclear capital of America. So I look forward to May 19th, and I just encourage you to get out and vote for someone that will represent you. Thank you.
I want to thank Seth Burden, Dale Dees, and Rodney Walker for joining us today, and I will echo the sentiments that you should get out and vote on May 19th. So please check your voter registration and remember to vote. Thanks for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Okay.